So Trent is manager major projects at Brimbank, and as part of this project, overseeing design and construction of the project. Drew, who is on his own right now, manager Brimbank Leisure Centres and oversees all business units within Brimbank Leisure Centres. Aaron is facility operation unit manager and oversees this centre, facility operations, the lifeguard and duty manager team. So these are the people we have on our panel today for questions. I'd like to open up to the floor, and Sally's also monitoring the chat for people online. Do we have any questions that have come up on the chat to start? Okay.
First question from Chris Bloomfield. I'm sorry, I don't know where this is from. Question on thermal storage. With a large mass of cool water, why store at 53 degrees?
Should I repeat that for my mic? So with a large store of pool water, why store the energy storage at 53 degrees?
Okay. Yeah, look, 53 is that's the base system temperature of the thermal system within this building. So what's happening is that the thermal energy store is based. We'll see them big tanks. The valve, when you're wanting to charge that thermal store, effectively it's some pumps and valves that will open. It's a more complicated process to actually change thermal source temperatures, which would become really, really complex. So yeah, I agree, and it's a good point that 53 degrees isn't, because it's low density thermal energy. Thermal energy, the hotter you get, the more densities and the more energy you store. But fundamentally, that's a limitation of the thermal network that we have, and avoiding cost and significant complexity.
It's a cost issue, definitely. We can get high temperature heat pumps, but they cost a lot more, require more energy. So, aside from this,
might go to the room before online. Any burning questions from the room? Yep.
In terms of maintenance, what have you seen that are the most recurrent issues that you found since you started?
So the question was, in terms of maintenance, any recurrent issues?
We've had a few dropouts of the system, so we've had circuit breakers trip and that kind of thing, but the mechanical services contractors have been amazing in their responsiveness in coming out and resetting and ascertaining what the reasons for those dropouts are. But in terms of downtime, the downtime's been really limited, that we haven't seen any significant maintenance. We haven't pulled them apart or anything like that at this stage. So,
like any facility, when there's power outages, it'll impact our pool heating, and what we've been fairly happy with is the response of the system to get it back up to temperature if it's happened to be out overnight. So, yeah.
And compared to gas boilers that we run in other sites, there are no more dropouts at this site than any other site that I've been a part of.
Yeah, we'll take one from the room and then we'll go back online.
I don't know who to ask, but are the heat pumps tolerant chlorinated water, or have you had to drop marine levels or anything in that space?
So the question was just, are the heat pumps tolerant of chlorinated water?
they're not in contact directly, so there's a heat exchanger. The heat exchanger, I think, is the titanium, so it has got problems.
Thank you.
And those plates are replaceable if they're in, but they, in my experience, they last between 10 and 15 years, the titanium plates.
Great. So John would like to know how much electricity demand is used by all of the heat pumps at Brimbank.
Oh, yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't have that figure. It's basically the summation of that graph, of that chart with the three red color bands. That's fundamentally that's the thermal input. We can easily procure out of the energy management platform the actual electricity input to those heat pumps. So the part of our monitoring as well will be system COP monitoring, so monitoring the whole system, an overall system COP, so thermal energy output, electricity input, and then also COPs on a per heat pump basis. So we've got thermal meters on the output of all heat pumps, both heating hot water and chilled water. And combining that with the electricity input, you can get a really good understanding of the instantaneous COP for those units as they're chugging away.
Michelle from Hume, thanks for the presentation. Nick, I just wanted to double check that I understood you correctly. Has the solar system been designed to provide thermal heat?
No, the solar is purely PV. Yep.
Yeah, so the thermal storage that you were referring to at the end is just from the heat pumps?
Just from the heat pumps, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I also asked, it looks to me as though it must be very tempting to turn off the gas boiler, given that it's contributing such a small percentage. Is it fair to assume that the difference that customers would notice if the gas boiler wasn't there would be really small?
I'll just clarify that question for people online. It was the first question was about the solar producing thermal heat, which it wasn't, and the second question was is the difference of the gas boiler kicking in negligible in terms of heat pool temperature? I'm sure our facilities team has something to say about that.
Yeah, go sorry.
Well, we had a members' breakfast this morning, and there was complaints about the pool being a bit cold this morning, and it was on the temperature. Yeah, so if there's an impact of half a degree or a degree, then we notice it. Particularly the warm water pool, when instead of 34 degrees, it's sitting around 32.5 or whatever, there'll be comments. Yeah.
Yeah, half a degree in my experience, the customers start to notice. So if you are getting that deflection in your pool temperatures, they'll tell you all about it. But probably the bigger issue we're having is our pools are all low, probably getting a little bit over temperature on occasion. The customers are becoming used to that, and then when it comes back down to the set point, people are like, oh, it's cold. So, but don't use your customers as a data reference point.
Yeah, and from our point of view, we're still investigating. So, yeah, we haven't drilled down into the problem enough just as yet to advise Brimbank on what the what we think the issue is. But yeah, I guess the standing comment is that user experience in these facilities is paramount.
From our perspective, I don't know if Drew, you want to lean in more on this comment, but the inclusion of the gas boiler in our system. That redundancy is probably a bit understated. In terms of our Learn to Swim program and our members, if we have temperature drops in our pools and we can't operate Learn to Swim, there's a significant financial impact and reputational impact on our operation if we lose that heating load. So having that gas boiler as redundancy and for the 1% and 2% of thermal load that it's offering means a lot to us in terms of our operations and our business continuity.
Initially, we actually did look at putting another heat pump in as redundancy if we're taking gas away from the equation. But it's a lot cheaper than the gas boiler sitting there not doing anything. Hopefully for most of the year, than having a heat pump sitting there idle.
One thing I'll probably add to that as well. So the initial scope that we had for this project was full gas system, and it wasn't until we initially appointed the builder, we started work on the design of the project that we were able to get some arena funding that came into the mix through Ross Kingston, and Ben down the back there, and we were so we decided to put towards the executive that the new technology is coming along. However, it hasn't been tested before and it is new. There is going to be a big risk. Our initial pushback from the executive was no. I think we got a $6 million costing it was to do it, and we were like, the executive like, no way, it's not happening. Stick with the traditional gas. It was from our environment team and Ross Kingston and Ben in particular that kept coming forward to come back to me and saying, I think we can do this. So we went away separately and sort of worked on a little bit of an idea that maybe we could then put back to them. We got the arena funding that helped us get a bit of credentials, and we then went ahead with moving forward, working with the design team, working with the builder, and really taking the next step in this industry and in the technology to see if it actually can be done. It was pretty scary. There was a lot of late Friday night phone calls from a lot of consultants coming to me saying, "What the hell are you doing, Trent? Why are we doing this?" And I'd come back to Ross and say, "Why are we doing this?" But we ended up just taking that next step, and we reduced the cost significantly. But we couldn't get away from the fact that we had to maintain the client need. And the client need was to be able to have the pool temperatures at a certain temperature, so they could do their learner swim classes or they could do their swim, whatever they wanted to do. So we really had to focus on that. So I was able to convince the CEO at the time that let's put in the gas boiler system as a fallback if the technology didn't work. And it was working. You can see it actually is working. Every now and then we do, because we're during the commissioning phase, we're only been open 12 months. The commissioning phase, and it's actually, we're getting to the stage now where we're proving the proofs and put it. We actually are delivering what we didn't think we could do, and now we actually can do. And I've got to tell you, the amount of phone calls I get from different councils and different people nowadays saying, oh, we're going down the path of just full electric, we're doing full electric, that's what we want to do. Yes, it's about that, but at the end of the day, it's about your client. It's about your customer, about your client and your aquatic centres to maintain that pool temperature. So I would, if I was doing it again, I'd still err on having the gas back up. And then you might not need it, or if you've got the money, have the extra redundant system like Thorsten saying, to put the extra redundant system in, but I'd just be, it gives a level of satisfaction to the executive and to your councils and to whoever your client may be that you've got the technology you know that does work. But we've now got technology that we also know that is working.
It's fair to say we were keen to be pioneers, but we didn't want to fall flat on our face.
Absolutely. No, definitely not. It was absolutely what we didn't want to say. But now
to Trent's point about being in our first 12 months, there will be maintenance schedules that'll have to occur in the next few years on those systems. So having extra capacity in that system and redundancy allows us to have that continuity of service, even though maintenance, those heat pumps may need to occur.
Question.
Oh yeah, we'll take one more question, then we'll take another online. Yeah.
How many FTE staff do you actually have in terms of maintaining your system in the new building?
Oh, maintenance.
Just the side of things.
So two things I did with this project was there's a 24-month VLP period. That was at the very start of the project before we changed over to the full electric. But so AGCO, the builder, and their subcontractors are still in control of the building for another 12 months. So they maintain the facility for us. But we have basically two staff. I have one building guy, maybe one full FT. I was one full FT who looks after this building, also our city centre.
Yeah. So were there any challenges in getting a gas contract or an unknown quantity of gas?
I don't think this site's triggered a large gas contract at this stage. The other site had. It's half the size, but no, not this one.
Yeah.
So was there an air tightness target? And if so, was there testing completed?
Absolutely. Yep. 3 cubic meters per square meter an hour. Just very ambitious targets, and we just achieved that.
Drones are running through the building.
Yeah. Several cameras on them.
One question from here in the back.
Your heat pumps, how do you know how often they're going to the ice, and how is the thermal output of them affected in the sort of low temperature that you get in that 4 to 6 degrees ambient temperature?
Good question. We haven't looked at the defrost data as yet. It's sort of like a macro look at the base thermal outputs. In saying that, the fact that the boiler is kicking on predominantly in very low ambient events is it could be related to some of the defrost, but I don't think, if you think about the number of compressors and the number of heat pumps out there, it would be very rare that they're all dipping into defrost at the exact same time. So there's diversity, a bit of resiliency there from that. Obviously, that's conditional on what the field demand is for the thermal output. But the trend that we're seeing is that there is something that's triggering the gas boiler to come on under those low ambient events. I'm really not expecting, there could be a couple of events, what are we now, September? There might be maybe 1 or 2 events this month, but I wouldn't anticipate that gas boiler is going to kick on again until possibly May next year, provided that we work through. Hopefully it doesn't come on at all, but we're working through those systems. But yeah, it's a good point on the defrost. We haven't quantified that as yet.
In theory, we should be able to take hot water from the storage tanks when defrost cycle.
Yeah, it's more than that. Yeah, any other period where they're continually going back into defrost again and again throughout the day.
We haven't recharged, yes.
Through that storage.
Yeah.
And especially if your thermal output is significantly reduced, as you see with these lower and the simply still the same.
But defrost, I believe, only really happens early in the morning, late night, when it gets really, really cold.
As a minor follow-up to that, are they all the same refrigerant type in the heat pumps, so therefore they can go into the defrost with a similar ambient temperature, or are they refrigerants?
Good question. No, I'm not too sure.
We have the note on our refrigerants on our arena website. From memory, I don't think it mentions multiple types of refrigerant. It's one. Yeah.
There were,
Back in the centre.
yeah, my understanding from the design process was that there was a really extensive exercise that was done testing a different heat pump.
Yeah, I was involved in that part.
Sorry, there was a question lurking around on this side, maybe, or maybe. I'll take your question and then I'll take one online. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, how do the predicted energy modelling consumption figures compare to actuals?
So that was just how did the predicted consumption figures compared to actuals? I'm not sure how much the computer can give.
Golden question.
The golden question. It doesn't really compare. There's a number of reasons for that. We modeled for Greenstar. So we used the Greenstar modeling protocol, and that's not really exactly how the facility operates, but Greenstar is trying to compare apples with apples. So therefore we had to use that protocol. We also found that there was a slight modeling error in our first predictive model, and that changed the figures as well slightly. But in the end, it came in better than what we expected. And that's rare. Typically when we model, it looks very, very positive, and then the actual facility doesn't run as well. But it's the other way around.
Yeah, from a cost perspective, the modelling to do Greenstar modelling versus to do real world predictive modelling of actual energy consumption within a reasonable tolerance, sort of exponential in terms of cost. You know, and that's Greenstar, as Thorsten says, tries to provides a methodology for apples and apples. And yeah, it's not surprising that Greenstar underestimates energy consumption by a factor of 2 in some building types, because it takes an assumed occupancy profile. It also doesn't include some systems within the building. It's looking at some of the fundamental thermal envelope aspects.
Because the Greenstar number is predicated mainly around offices, apartments, building complexes.
No, not really. We can apply actual profiles and you know, try and simulate the system as it's designed. But Greenstar has got quite a number of limitations. The ventilation strategy, for example, I was talking about, it's called open balance, and we know that it reduces the energy demand significantly. But we can't model that because it's proprietary software. We don't know how it works. So all we can do is just apply a factor to it. And we discussed it to GBCA. They just said, if you can't prove it, we can't allow you to actually put that in the model. So therefore, that modeling outcomes different. So a CO2 sensor?
Yeah.
No, that's a different. Yeah, it's very different.
This will probably bore most people in the room, just from an operator's perspective. I'll be really interested to see how year 2 pans out, because there's been some teething problems with the system, and we're working through some of that, and I think that we'll probably be able to get better efficiency in the solar for that second year as well, because I think there were some early issues around that as well. I think you mentioned that when you talk about tapping out at that 280.
Yeah, it's not 280. Yeah, it's a lot more. Yeah.
But just so you understand, I think this first year of operation is always a busy one for a facility. Everyone wants to come in those first few months and all the rest. So we had an exceptionally busy summer. We opened the doors with 6,000 members. We're up to about 10,000 members now. So that's not a lie. I'm not throwing it out there for any other reason. We have about 3,000 aquatic members, all using, a lot of them using the warm water pool and there's a 50-metre lap swimming pool. But we have 7,000 health and fitness members. We will have 150 people on the floor in peak time in the gym, and those treadmills are just going constantly and all the rest of it. So we are absolutely operating at capacity almost every day of the year. So I will be interested to see year 2. There's a slight decline on usage. That 1.2 million visits may not peak as highly as that, I'd like to see whether or not we actually use a little bit less energy as well. We'll see. And with the thermal efficiencies in the system, learning the system a bit better.
We should put the trickles up to electricity.
It's interesting that in this facility, in theory, the heat they're generating is ending up in the pool.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this facility. Is that heat that's being removed by the chilled water, going back to that 4-pipe simultaneous heat pump, and the heat's just being shifted across the hot water and sent back out to the field. It's a very, very good system.
Anything online?
Yeah, this might be a good follow-on from that comment. This is about electricity demand and billing. What strategies are in place for peak demand management to limit demand and network demand charges?
No.
Yeah.
We don't have any. No, we don't. It hasn't come into our midpoint.
Yeah, I can probably so that the fundamental underpinning of the thermal storage was that it was going to be charged during periods of excess solar PV. We think that theory is probably on a little bit of shaky ground, but what that thermal storage facility will enable the facility to do will be, once we get enough data and you'll be able to identify those periods where you're hitting your peak electrical demand, and there can be preparation of charging that thermal storage. You don't want the tank sitting there with 50 to 53 degree water all the time for the year if you're using them once or twice, but it's learning how the system behaves. And in theory, that thermal energy storage will provide some demand flexibility and peak load blocking for short periods of time.
It's also a bit of a load shift compared to a typical, say, commercial office, where peak energy demand happens in the afternoon. You know, hot day outside, the energy, the chillers work flat out. Here in an aquatic center, there's because of the good thermal envelope, the cooling demand is not that high, and at the same time, we're still producing hot water for the pool itself. So we're keeping that peak load down to a really good level. And if we also got solar kicking in at the same time, that really helps.
So just a couple minutes left, so we might take 2 more questions. Is there any more online? Or okay, maybe one from the crowd and one from online.
Yeah.
So we have to make. Yeah.
I want to know a little bit more about the capital costs. So we talked a lot about the operational costs, but in building, this 6-star Green Star building, how much more expensive was it compared to business as usual, sort of stock standard aquatic centre? And did you have a budget at the beginning to work with, and it had to come under budget? Did it come under budget, or was it kind of just tell us how much you need and we'll make it happen?
Depends on what to do. No, certainly was. We did have a budget for it. We were lucky when we tended the building. We tended just before the price was really, just before COVID. So we tended smack bang when COVID hit. We were very lucky there to fall into a situation where builders wanted to keep continuity work going on, so we were able to get a pretty good price. Yes, it did. Yes, it did cost a little bit more to go to full 6-star Green Star. Absolutely did. But
that's difficult to
yeah, it's difficult to quantify. It's really difficult. It was in the millions. There's definitely millions. It was.
It's essentially the extra old for people.
Yeah.
That took us over the line. We did target 5-star Green Star, and we were easily there.
Yeah.
Without any effort.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's just the heat pumps that was
About 2 million.
Yeah, I'd be
We got
confident
a
to say
grant
it was
from
nice.
Marina, but it's hard to exactly say what components were the electric and what were the gas, and also as I understand, the electric system was made to be that amount because it was already 5-star Green Star, so it might not have cost only 2 million if it was, a leaky outdoor centre. But yeah, we got a grant from Marina for 2 million to go all electric. Yeah.
And I dare say that because we switched over to heat pumps during construction, the builder probably charged a little bit more than what you would typically get upfront.
Yep.
Yeah, they certainly did. Look, I would, if I was giving you a figure, I'd say nearly 3 million. But I would say that the reputational benefit and the benefit to outside that is you can't even quantify the difference between I think we budgeted 3,000 members. These are 10.
And
That's a 5% extra, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the explosion in gas costs.
Absolutely.
I will make that comment as well. Something we didn't include in this presentation, a presentation I did recently. We originally estimated that the payback of that extra 2 million would be something like 11.2 years in saved gas prices. After the gas prices increased, that's gone down to about 5 years. Yeah.
It's well worth it. Well worth it, because it's changed the industry. As you'll see here today, it's changed the thinking, and it's changed the industry, and it's given, well, for me, for my little world, it's given a tangible outcome that we can grab hold of and say, this is what we're doing as Brimbank Council. And I'm sure other councils are heading down that path for that reason in some ways. So it's in.
We also feel pretty fortunate with the timing of the build, is that it cost us about 60 years.
Yeah, we were lucky.
But if we were to rebuild it now, it would probably be closer to 90.
I think there's a lot of focus on the electric heat pumps, and that's the kind of sexy thing at the moment. But and Thorsten, you can probably talk more about this. But for me, the building envelope and the insulation and the way we're not losing energy is a huge hitter in all of the energy efficiency of the building as well. So yeah, like heat pumps are the thing that everyone wants to talk about. No one goes to see the batteries, but no one cares about the insulation and the building envelope. But I think that's still a lot of the heavy lifting.
The design was key. There was a lot of time. There was a lot of workshops, and a lot of time spent on the actual design. And between WRA, Williams Ross, and Thorsten, and his crew, there was a lot of thinking got to achieve what we've achieved. A lot of work, a lot of modelling going on. So it's a big effort. It was 4 years. It was 4 years of my life, really.
He was only 21 years old when he wrote this.
One more question from mine. I think we'll wrap up the hybrid session.
Yeah. Just a quick practical question. Do you let the pool temperature cool overnight when it's closed and then quick heat in the morning? And if so, it's more efficient.
We don't do that. We have the capacity to do that, but working with the mechanical services, we just wanted to remove that variation in the data so that we could do some proper analysis. And once it's all dialed in and we're happy, then yeah, it has the potential to do that in the future. But right now, no, we're not doing that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Really great questions. And that's it for the hybrid session and the Teams call. So thanks to everyone online.
Just a quick question, actually.
Yes.
Are you happy for us to share the presentation with everybody?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely can share the presentation. Oh, well, actually, I'll ask Thorsten. Yeah, that's great. And everyone here, of course, will start the tour, and you'll have plenty more opportunity to answer questions. So we'll go to a break now and then reconvene at 2:45 to split into two groups to go on the tour. So thanks everyone. Thank you, everyone.